Well, hello, folks, and welcome to the Melhorn Fishing Podcast. I hope you're having a good day, whatever day it is that you happen to be listening to the show. Today, we're going to talk about a new record catfish. Actually, two state record catfish from the same state, but they're kind of different. And there's probably a little controversy around one of them. So we'll get into that in a second. Just want to thank everybody that has stopped by. Whether you're watching this podcast, I'm doing a video version of this podcast on YouTube, or if you're listening to it on the traditional podcast platform. I do a lot of the regular podcast, just the audio podcast only, but I'm still doing some of the video versions. Was going to do away with them, but I decided some of these are pretty good. People do like to watch them. I'm getting some pushback. People want to see them, listen to them that way. So we're going to continue to do some. I figured this would be a good one. I can roll in some pictures on the video version of these fish and kind of give you some explanation. If you are listening to the podcast and want to reach out to me, send me some feedback, go to my website, melhornfishing.com. There's a contact section on there. You can send me an email, shoot me a text. That is the easiest way to get through to me. There's also a link to my guide service that's here in the Carolinas, and also links to the fishing gear that I use. People ask about that sometimes, so it's all on the website, melhornfishing.com. Obviously, if you're on YouTube, you can listen down, or you can comment down in the comment section, and there's also ways to reach out to me there in the description. But anyway, Mississippi, two new record fish. Two new, as the media reports it, state record fish. And they are, but there's a major difference between the two of them. Earlier this year, a man by the name of Eugene Cronley caught a 131-pound blue catfish. It's amazing that the Mississippi, and this was in Mississippi, by the way, Mississippi River, just near Natchez, Mississippi. It amazes me that this record, that Mississippi has not produced a fish bigger than the previous state record, which was a lot less. I want to say it was in the low 100-pound range. I kind of would think that the Mississippi would have produced some really, really, really big fish, especially far down the drainage as it is. But that's a whole discussion for another day. This fish was caught earlier this year on rod and reel, a legitimate rod and reel sporting means fish, legitimate record, state record. It may actually turn into a world record, a line class record for 30-pound line. It was caught on 30-pound monofilament line, and the IGFA has line class records. And depending on what line you caught the fish on, what size line it is, you could have a world record for that line class. It gets kind of complicated and all that stuff. And you're like thinking, well, the world record was caught on 30-pound line. Why isn't it a line class record? Well, it depends on the line. Depends if it was past test. It also depends if you submit the line. One of the things with the IGFA on line class records, you have to submit your line and leader that the fish was caught on for it to be an IGFA record, line class record anyway. The overall record is what they call an all tackle record, which is basically you could catch it on mason cord if you wanted to, which we'll get into a second on this next state record. But that's the way the whole line class record thing goes. And you can catch a world record, line class record fish on 2-pound line, 4-pound line, 6-pound line. There's all different line class records, but that's a discussion for a whole nother day. The bottom line is this was a rod and reel catch, sporting means, and it's going to be the new Mississippi record. Now, Mississippi does stuff a little different. They have 3 different record categories. They have rod and reel, they have trophy, like a trophy category, which is the one we'll discuss here in a second, and they have fly fishing. So you can have a state record for a blue catfish caught on fly tackle. You could have a line or a rod and reel record, and then you could have this other category, which is like a trophy fish category, which it sounds like you can catch them on just about anything. And this is what happened with this other record that is getting probably more media attention than the actual rod and reel record. And that is this gentleman named Christopher Halley. He caught a fish that's 104 pounds, which by all means is a great fish. A fish I would love to catch. I feel sure anybody out there would want to catch this fish. Caught in a similar area. It was near Natchez, Mississippi. And the difference with this one was it was caught on a Trotline. And one of the things that, a lot of people discredit fish that are caught on Trotlines, jugs, limb lines, because of they're not considered sporting means. And this fish got a lot of attention. It got a lot of media attention. Obviously, a local TV station has no clue what the difference is between rod and reel, trot line, shooting them with a bow and arrow, or whatever. So they're calling it all a new state record. There's been a little bit of talk, a little bit of controversy. People are, upset about it. But the bottom line is, it's a different means of catching a fish. For those of you that don't know what a trot line is, Trotline, it is basically a long string or rope with many hooks on it. Some are limited on how many hooks you can have. Some can have hundreds of hooks. Sometimes they are suspended off the bottom. Sometimes they lay on the bottom. Generally speaking, there are two heavy weights on both ends of it. And these things are put in the water. In most places, there's a time limit on how long they can be there. In other words, you would put it out and it can only stay out for 24 hours or 48 hours. Some places don't have those rules. You could put these things out and forget about them. And basically, these fish would be hooked onto them and end up dying. That has happened. We've seen that happen here in South Carolina with some trot lines that were left unattended. The fishermen put them out, just forgot about them, and the fish died that were on there. They started to bloat and swell up, and it floated the line to the top, and there's a string of 20, 30, 40 fish dead on a trot line. That's how trot lines work. They've been used forever. It's basically a simple, carefree, I'm not going to say lazy way of fishing, but it does not require you to be attentive to what is going on with the fish. It does not require any angling skill. You either catch them or you don't. There is really no chance of the fish breaking the line, simply because the size of the cord that they use. They're not using regular fishing line on these things. It is like mason cord, like a string, and a lot of times a small rope that the main line is tied onto. So it would take a lot of weight to break one of these things. So it's really not a sporting means. And what we mean by sporting means is that the fish has a chance of winning. That's the difference between sporting means and non-sporting means of fishing. It's like shooting a fish with a bow and arrow. It's you shoot it, it's gonna die, and there's not really a chance for it to get away, it to beat you. So the only thing there is it comes down to some skill with shooting and the refraction of light and going into the water, which the bigger the fish, the easier it is to hit. And the same thing with jugs and limb lines. The big factor in all these things is time. The thing that keeps the playing field level between animals and humans is time, and how much time we as humans can commit to fishing, catching, hunting, whatever. You've heard me say before, time on the water is the great equalizer. Time in a stand is the great equalizer when it comes to hunting. The more time you can put pursuing whatever it is you're pursuing, the leveler the playing field becomes between you and that animal, or at least the better your chances are of catching or killing something. The more time you have to engage. We as humans, we don't have that much time. We have to sleep. We have families. We have work to go to. We have to eat. We have to go get food. So it's very difficult for us to put a lot of time into fishing or hunting. One of the things the trot line does, a jug does, is you can put them out and forget about them. Not all places. It's not always legal. to leave them unattended. But in many places, you can put them, set it, and forget it. Same thing with some of the diddy pole things, mud pole, that kind of fishing. Now, these are old traditional ways of fishing. People have done this for years and years. There's a lot of cultural draw to it, and in most places, it's legal. So it's another one of those things that while we don't agree with it or like it or consider it sporting, it's perfectly legal. It's perfectly legal for people to do it. The biggest negative that gets associated with these alternative ways of catching a fish is most of the time it's catch and kill. And that is just the nature of that type of fishing. Now, some people don't. There are a lot of people that will do jug fishing just for fun, go out, float around, throw some jugs, check them, catch them. But most of the time it's catch and kill. And I think that's what creates more of the division between the rod and reel sporting means anglers and these alternative methods of catching fish. So, and I think that's what created some of this discord with this fish being considered a record. And in all honesty, Mississippi is one of the few states that actually recognizes these records. Most of the time, most states, even South Carolina, which I always give South Carolina crap for being kind of behind the eight ball in wildlife management. There was what would have been a new state record in South Carolina caught several years ago. I think it was around this same weight of this, or actually it was more. It was around the state record for Mississippi. I think it was around 129, 130 pounds. That was caught in Santee Cooper, but it was caught on the Trotline. So it was ineligible for the state record. And they, in South Carolina, North Carolina doesn't. They don't, nobody recognizes any of these records just because of the means and method involved in this, that it's not really a sporting means. I made the statement that this is similar to hitting a record deer with your car and calling it, a great accomplishment. I don't consider, and I'll be honest with you, the trot line, the jug fishing, or the pole bank limb line fishing, something that is impressive. It's legal. Don't put down the people that do it, but I'm not impressed by anybody that catches a fish by those means. Because again, I don't think there's any skill involved outside of putting it on some limbs and having big enough rope. You're not really going head to head with the fish. Quite honestly, and I'm not a fan of the noodling, grappling, grabbing, fish grabbing stuff. I give more credit to the people who will hand grab a fish than I do to the people who will put out a trot line, a limb line, a jug, or shoot them with a bow and arrow. Mainly because anybody's willing to stick their hand down there and grab a fish one-on-one, you on that fish. That's pretty impressive. It gets no more one-on-one than that. So I actually put those in a higher category. But the bottom line is I have no disdain for these people or anything. I just don't put that type of fishing in high regards as far as what it's done. But it's perfectly legal. I do wish the people that fish by these methods would be a little more concerned with creating a sustainable resource. Maintaining a sustainable resource, I guess, is the best way to put it. Because honestly, the means of fishing itself is not the problem. Any of the problem comes with the mentality of the anglers that just see it as an easy way to catch and kill fish. And it's why a lot of commercial fishermen that catch these fish and use them and sell to market will use these methods because it's quick, easy, you can catch them in mass, and the level of actual skill and time required is significantly lower than catching them on rod and reel. So, but that is what it is. It's legal. Apparently, it has no effect on our fisheries whatsoever because 131-pound fish was caught, bigger than the one caught on the trot line, and a new record was made in Mississippi, which you would think would have already had fish that size being caught. So it may not be a really big impact. Who knows? Not enough research into that to make a determination on that, but just wanted to go over that, throw all that out there so you kind of knew what was going on. And it is really cool to see these triple-digit fish being caught. We're seeing more and more of them being caught. Some of them are released, most of them are not. I don't think either of these fish. I know the new Mississippi State record was not released. It was many pictures of it hanging from a tree in the guy's backyard. And while the fish, the one that was called the Trotline, looks nice and alive in the picture, I've seen no indication that it was released alive either. So that's just the nature of the beast on all these things. It happens, and it's just what we have to deal with, us that are supporting catch and release. It's that's the way to go for a sustainable resource. It helps. A fish this size, is there that much more to be gained from it? Probably not. In all honesty, is that fish going to reproduce that much more? Probably not. It's done most of its work, but I think it's more the mental picture that is painted by making the attempt to do it, and the people you reach by attempting to release it alive. That has a greater impact than anything. So, but it is what it is. Legal catches caught legally, and for now, that's the way it'll be. So, till next time, we'll catch you guys out on the water. Well, folks, if you made it this far, thank you for watching. Here are a couple more videos that I think you're gonna like. I'd watch that one, and then that one. No, do that one first, and then that one. I don't know. Just watch them both. They're both good.